Order the November 12th, 2024 meeting of the Auburn Select Board. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Select Board is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 408-650-3123 with access code 235-235-861, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. This meeting is being recorded by Auburn Public Television. Is there anyone else recording? Seeing none, could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no one signed up for public comment this evening. We have no community organizations. We have no presentations, public hearings, no departmental items, no communications. We're moving along to number 8, Select Board General Items. We have no proclamations or recognitions. We do have a gift acceptance in our packet. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the gift in the amount of $150 from Central One Federal Credit Union to the Senior Center Veterans Celebration, with gratitude.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. 8C, we have a request to change the address for a gas registration on a permit. Do board members have any questions?
Do you have any documents for this?
Did I miss that?
Let me take a look.
Just the email?
Just the email? Are there any other questions?
No, I make a motion, we change the address, the owner address to Southbridge Trust LLC, Albert E. Riley, trustee and managing agent, 1071 South Mooring Drive, apartment 5205, Arlington Heights, Illinois, 60005.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. We need to have a discussion on our board meetings for November and December. Typically, we have dropped the second meeting in December. It would fall right around the holidays. The last November meeting is the week of Thanksgiving. Considering we are having a meeting next week, would we be interested in? Let me just look at my calendar real quick, because I feel like there is one more day in November. Oh, no, so, for the November 25th meeting, are members of the board going to be here? Are you available for it?
I'm available.
Okay.
I'm available.
I'm available.
I'm traveling, so.
Okay. So we will look at the agenda, and if we can get them all into the 18th, where we have our tax classification hearing, we can,
Madam Chair, I was just made aware, there may be 2 items that we may have to schedule a meeting on the 25th. I don't know if they're time sensitive, so we need to have a discussion with the applicant to see if they are, I know they need to be advertised and such, so I like to at least put a placeholder on for the 25th in the event we have to have a meeting to bring an item or two to the board if necessary. If not, we can have a conversation as to whether or not you want to have that meeting.
Sure, that sounds great. As far as our December meeting schedule, we would be the 9th and the 23rd. That is right before the holidays on the 23rd.
Would we schedule one on the 30th as well, or no?
We certainly could. I mean, it is a month with 5 Mondays.
So my concern with skipping a meeting is I know town manager has already discussed his intention to leave. I don't know where we'll be or what we're looking for as far as a process, so.
Sure.
I'm open to not having it, but I also don't want to delay things if we're making progress and moving towards that.
I agree with Mr. Chambers. I think maybe we keep it as tentative, and if there are issues that need to be brought forward, we can keep it on a calendar. If not, then we can not hold it.
Sure, so are we considering tentative as the 23rd or tentative as the 30th? I'm just trying to understand what holiday schedules are for people.
So I'm here, so I'm available both.
I'm here as well.
I'm here.
I could be remote on the 23rd. But I am not here. So keep it as the 23rd, or would you prefer it as the 30th? I would be back in person for the 30th, and
Why don't we see as we get closer to the 9th, what's
Okay.
hanging out there, and then we can decide if we want to push it out to the 30th, or if we say, hey, we do it on the 16th, we do 2 Mondays in a row, and bang it out that way.
sounds like a plan. Okay, so we're going to move along to number 9, town manager items.
Just a reminder, we have that special meeting on November 18th for the tax classification hearing. So right now, that meeting is designated to have that as a single agenda item, but if there are some pending issues, we may also include them that evening as well. I'm seeking some input on 9B relative to the process relating to selecting your next town manager. Certainly, there's a number of options that the board may want to consider. Professionally, I would suggest to this board that they consider hiring a professional recruitment firm who will take you from the beginning to the end and guide you through the process as it relates to the selection process. But I'm open to listen and to carry out the wishes of the board if it has any other suggestions. And I guess we need to have that conversation tonight to begin a process that we can set in motion and get things moving along. Also like to understand more of a timeline that the board has in mind. Does it want to proceed in a manner that slows down the process, speeds up the process, or open to either or? But I think that's important to know as well.
Do board members have any suggestions? Absolutely.
Madam Chair, so I'll just let the board know sort of where I am on this. To me, this is probably one of the most important votes that this board will ever take in terms of the future of the town with respect to hiring a new town manager. I don't think we should be rushing this, and here's my reason why. With the departure of our current town manager at the end of January, we're going to be beginning our budget process at that point and getting ready for town meeting. At the same time, and maybe I'm reading the tea leaves incorrectly, but my understanding in watching those meetings is that the fire department, the new fire building, will likely come for a vote at the May election for the Prop 2.5 override necessary to fund that. And I think that we need to have as stable of a town government as possible through that process. So where I'm at in terms of the timing is that certainly we should be throughout that time period. I agree we need to engage a professional organization that does executive level headhunting. Based on my experience in other municipalities I've worked with, that has always worked well. The whole reason we have a town manager form of government is so that we have a professional managing the town's organization. And I think that vetting process done by that type of organization yields, from the initial advertising, the vetting of all the different candidates, and then bringing the board 2 to 3 top candidates based on their professional experience for us to consider is the best way to go. So I agree with Town Manager Kasanovich on that. In the meantime, for that stability, my preference would be that this board appoint Dory Vecchio as interim town manager. Dory has the professional experience, not just here in town, but in her other municipal experience. She is MCPPO certified, so she can act as the purchasing agent. As we all know, the town manager acts as the purchasing agent for the town, so we are covered in that respect. She has the relationships with our department heads, with our staff. It's not a new person coming in who's here for a short time that might not have those relationships and those understandings of our budget process and our department heads and the internal workings of staffing and staffing concerns on the day-to-day level that we have in terms of managing the town. So for the stability factor, I think that, this board should consider appointing Dory as our interim town manager, going out for a advertising process through a professional organization that does it. And then I think that we also owe it to the town and the residents to have as transparent a process as possible. So when those 2 to 3 individuals are brought forward by that organization, yes, we'll have our small group interviews with one or two members of the select board, but I think that all 3 should come before in a public session where the public is here, where they are answering specific questions, so that the board as a whole, as well as the public, can hear those answers, can see where they are in their experience and their thinking, and the vision that they may have for Auburn moving forward before we make our decision.
I think that's the usual process, to have them come and speak before the board.
Yeah, I do believe it does have to be in open session. I agree with you completely. I think appointing Dory as the interim would be a good call because she already knows what's going on in town. I'm leery of hiring someone for a short-term interim because my concern is that they will just keep us afloat and not move us forward. Do any other members have suggestions?
I do. I agree that we should have the assistant town manager serve in an interim capacity, but I also think she's going to need help. So we should be looking as a board to try and backfill her position on a temporary basis so that she can't do everything. And as wonderful as the department heads are, they've got their hands full. So I think we need to do that. I do believe we should hire a professional firm to do this. However, I am very leery of allowing someone to just have a total hands-off approach. I think there should be a search committee. We should be, a couple of our members, as well as other members within the community, to look at those and come up with a list of 3 to 4 candidates that we can then bring to the board. And as Mr. Crane said, and as I believe the law requires, we ask them questions, we winnow it down to hopefully the winner, and that hopefully we choose well. My timeline would be June to have somebody in this position if possible, but obviously it's going to depend on, the applicants, how quickly things happen, and, so that's my thought process.
So I concur with you, gentlemen, and with Madam Chair. So we should have a search committee to write an RFP, to select a professional search firm to come up with candidates. And a temporary, it would be good to have a temporary help, but I'm not sure how we would find that person. Do you think a search firm would provide them?
I
That's what
do.
it sounded
And I
like.
think Mass Municipal Association might be able to be helpful to us, and certainly we can explore that. But I think it's essential, so that that position, especially the HR function, as town manager, she's not going to be able to do
Right.
HR. And we need her focused on what we need to get across the finish line, making sure that the public, especially for the fire station, has all the information that they require to make a informed decision on what is a necessary building, and we need to see, this thing go off well, but we also need the voters to understand why, and that this is a very necessary building, and it's going to cost us more probably than we want to spend, but the reality is the building isn't going anywhere, and it's going to serve us for decades to come, and it's going to give our fire service and the residents a much better level of service than they can provide with a 1960s building and an old cafeteria. I mean, it just is, but we have to give them the information, and both chiefs have done a tremendous job with putting out information for the public. They can go and see that, but I'm sure they're going to go on the road again, and I'm sure Dory will be right alongside them trying to make the case for why this is essential for us to move forward as a community.
I mean, I agree with securing help. I just want to make sure that it is clear that it's on a temporary basis. Obviously, I assume Dory would go for the full-time position of town manager. However, if she decides not to, or if we choose another candidate, I want that opening for her to move back into that spot. Some of you know I was very concerned that when we elevated Ginger, we then filled her position on a full-time basis, and had she not been successful in her election, she would have been out of a job, and I was very concerned about that. I do not want to see that happen here. Dory has been an amazing asset to the town at any level, and I want to make sure there's always a place for that. So a temporary basis, is absolutely fine, with me in providing that support. In terms of a search committee, I'll be quite honest with you. I have concerns about a search committee leading a process simply because I want to keep as many politics and personal opinions and personal relationships out of this as much as possible. I want the end result to be the best professional manager possible. I think that this board, we've been trusted by the residents to make this decision. I think using this firm based on the guidelines we give to advertise and then vet candidates and then bring them forward with 3 to 4 top candidates, and then we can make our decision. We can certainly, offer opportunity for the public to weigh in. However, I think that, this process needs to be steered and controlled by this board, not by other people that may have other interests that we're not aware of.
So are you looking for us to vote on how we would like to move forward? Or do you just, could we?
So I guess I'm looking for some guidance in terms of the selection of a recruitment firm. Certainly, we can go out and get quotes. My guess, based upon estimates that have been provided to me from other communities, is going to put that at a range of about 20. I don't know if the board would prefer to go the RFP route, where you would evaluate any potential firms and make a selection based upon a set of criteria that is established in the RFP, and that's why I talk about timing. So I know in the case of Northborough, when the town manager announced his retirement in August, they hired in October. So that process was compressed. And my guess is they didn't go out the RFP route, so they did a series of quotes and selected one that best fit the scope of services for the price. I guess that's really the next step. Do they want to do an RFP, and then any potential vendors would come before this board, be interviewed, and then they would be selected?
So I'll just weigh in from my own personal and professional experience. When you go low bidder, you get low bidder. And I'd rather not get low bidder for this. I'd rather do an RFP process where they come before us and we award it based on their experience, the package they bring before us, the experience of the people that are going to be working on this, and we evaluate that way, and not on the fact that they were the cheapest. I don't want the cheapest for this search, I want the best. And given MCPPO, the only way to do that is through an RFP process.
Do board members have any questions or comments?
So I haven't gone through this process. I don't know what the timeline is. Mr. Carpenter said somebody by June. I'd like to get the process moving and see what candidates are out there. We don't know if the right candidate will be in that first batch. So I would like to get a company on board as soon as possible and start that search process. And hopefully, we can get a good pool of candidates, but again, we don't know what's out there. And I don't want to just make a decision, because it is a big decision, just on the first bunch. I think we need to evaluate and make sure that the people that are brought in are at least one of the candidates is the right candidate for town. So I would love to expedite a process and get a search committee out there and then see what we have. I do believe we need stability throughout this whole process. So again, I don't want to jump into something, but if the right candidate's there, I think that's something the board can make a decision on. So I would like to see a search conducted as soon as possible and see what's out there.
You bring up a good point, too, Mr. Chambers, because an advertisement can go out, candidates can be sought, and there might not be any at that time. Given the economy, given the low unemployment rate, there might not be someone, so they might have to go out again to seek a candidate, so that's good. I think we should go with a search firm, have you contact some, and set up a criteria for what we're looking for.
Here's what I would suggest, and if there's some buy-in by the board, this would be great. So, listen, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. There are RFPs out there that are seeking exactly what we want, what the town wants, that's been done in another community. I would just like a subcommittee of this board to review the elements of the RFP, so we have some buy-in by the board before it's put out to bid.
So I don't see that on the agenda, but if we are looking for volunteers and we want to vote on that at another time.
If I may suggest this, I know there's no indication of a vote. I can begin to seek out that information. We can put that on for next Monday's meeting as another item, and you can take a vote at that time.
I want us part of the process. I do not want a search committee choosing people. I want to know who's coming in, who's an applicant, because you can say whatever you want about professionals. We're the ones that are going to live with it. They're going to go to wherever they live, and if we don't make the right choice, and if we don't know who's applying, what they look for and what we know, because we live here, and we know the players. So I think this board, and I think other committees in the community, need to form a search committee and be part of that process. And as for politics, I mean, you can try and rid the world of politics, but life is politics. Who's more popular than the next person in private industry is just as important as who is more important or got as many votes as we get to sit here. You're not going to miraculously divorce a political decision as well as a professional decision from the realities. And I also don't want to divorce us from the knowledge that we have from these other community leaders who know the community in ways that we may not know, and will bring things to the table that we as selectmen, yes, we're making the decision, that person's going to sit in that chair, but every committee is going to have to deal with that town manager. That town manager is going to make the appointments for the vast majority of committees that our citizens come before. So I want to make sure that we, as a community, are there from start to finish, and we're making a decision. Ultimately, yes, it's all 5 of us making a decision, but we need to make sure that the community is involved. We need to lean into intelligent leaders within our community who may or may not be elected, but have knowledge of the community that some of us lack. And I've lived here my entire life. I'm not going to tell you that I know everything. And I've learned from everybody sitting here and everybody who sat here before, and everybody will sit after I'm gone. I'll learn from them too, but I want us to be intimately involved in this process from start to finish, and I think that we should have members of the community, whoever they may be, helping us in that process.
My concern is that, well, first, I think we should hire a company to do this for us. They absolutely have the staff and the knowledge behind hiring these type of executive roles. My concern with the search committee is that, listen, I don't know what I don't know in hiring a town manager, and that goes for any regular person who doesn't do this on a regular basis. So I think moving forward with a company that does this on a full-time basis, this is their job, they are going to be the best suited people to find us applicants. I think that while a subcommittee would be fine, that I don't think it's ideal. I think having a company go out and do this for us is the cleanest and best way to move forward with this, because it takes emotions of like, well, I need somebody from this part of town, or I need somebody from this, organization, or I need someone who sits on this board. It takes that out of it, and we're going to get the best possible candidate or group of candidates for us to review and interview. So it looks a whole lot cleaner in that respect, that nobody had sway over who got picked to be a part of that committee, or people aren't upset that they weren't chosen. I think going through a company that does this is the cleanest and most transparent way to move forward on this.
And I just want to clarify, since this was, sort of the proposal that I put out there, I'm not saying that the public and members of other boards and commissions do not have a say or are not part of the process. I'm saying for that initial vetting process, where you are vetting resumes and you are vetting experience and you are checking references and you are doing that type of background check that HR professionals have to do, members of the public, us, are not equipped, quite frankly, to do that. There are state, federal laws involved when you do that kind of stuff, that this needs to be done by professionals. And when they bring us those 3 to 4 applicants, yes, then at that point, those applicants are subject to small interviews with us. We can require that they go do interviews with others. We can bring in people at that point, to do those types of interviews. That's normally done in other municipalities, where you have those representatives from different groups meet with them, and then they come back in an open forum and they provide their feedback to us. And that's when the public and those other individuals and elected and appointed officials should come in and weigh in. And quite frankly, they should also be meeting with our department heads. And we should be hearing from our department heads on their feeling on the type of leader this person may be, so that we get all of that feedback, and then we can make that collective decision. But for that initial round, when it is HR related, and I have the utmost respect for all of the elected appointed officials, none of us are equipped unless you do that for a living. And if you do that for a living, I guarantee 99 out of 100 people that do that for a living will say, go hire that professional firm.
So I'm not saying don't hire a professional firm. I'm saying we see all the applications that come in. I'm not saying I'm going to do reference checks. I'm not saying I'm going to fly to New Jersey like some boards have done. I'm saying, and if we're so incompetent, I don't know why any of us are here. And if we are so incapable of making decisions, why are we here? Because the voters elect us to make the decisions, not to say, well, we don't quite know, and we don't, because the reality is 90% of the decisions we make, we're not experts on. And I'm going to tell you, on all the boards and commissions, on day one, when I walked into the planning board, I didn't know a damn thing about the planning board. I didn't know anything about land use. I didn't know what end was up. But by the time I was done, I knew, and I listened and I learned, and so I'm all for hiring a private firm, but I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, well, they're professionals, so they know better than I do. I don't think that's true. I think we should be intimately involved in selecting those 4 candidates from the entire pool, and I'm not going to continue to talk about it because we should come to some sort of consensus.
My concern with your statement is that why, if we're going to vet all of those resumes, why are we paying this firm? Like, it's hard to have it both ways, to say, give me all the resumes you get, because I also want to look at all of them, but I'm paying you to do something that you do really well. So like, where's the give? Like,
We're not going to agree, Sarah, so
Right.
let's get to a consensus and let's move on, because I'm not going to continue to do the back and forth, because I don't think it's getting us anywhere. If we have a consensus on hiring a committee, let's schedule it for next week, let's vote as a board, and let's see where the board is. I'm going to tell you, I didn't get elected because I was the brightest person in the world. On any given day, any other candidate would have been better than me. So, but I'm not going to delegate to somebody I don't know because they have some sort of qualification that somebody thinks they know my town better than I do, or they know from 28 years of experience sitting on boards and commissions that I don't know what makes a good leader. I fundamentally disagree with that. But again,
Can I make a recommendation as part of our RFP? We discuss the criteria, and if those resumes meet that criteria, we get to look at that. Because I think that's really what it is. Like, I don't need someone who is utterly unqualified for that position, but if this board decides on what criteria we're looking for, if the resumes that come in meet that criteria, we at least get a say on next steps. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is if somebody had the qualifications, but they're not with that firm, or someone, I just don't want to throw out a candidate that isn't necessarily tops on anyone's list, but meets the qualifications. And then from there, we can make that decision and bring forward, because again, we're talking bringing 4 candidates. Well, if there's 12 great candidates, why aren't we bringing all 12 forward? And I think that's the concern, is that we're going to throw somebody out on first look that we didn't even get a look at. And again, if they bring us 4 candidates and one of them isn't the one that the board decides on, then we're back at it again. So then we're getting that other 2. So let's expand it. Let's set some criteria of what we would want in the qualified candidate. Let's have those resumes brought forward, and then from there we can talk about it. And hopefully we have an embarrassment of riches where there's 300 candidates, and that's a good problem.
I mean, so, as someone who just went through this process and sat on one of these committees, you say 3 or 4, but if there are 12 that you set out the criteria in the RFP, you tell them, I want a minimum experience of this, I want 3 years of this, I want 5 years of this, X, Y, Z. And they do that vetting for you. It might give you 3 candidates, it might give you 15 candidates. What they do is, if it's more than 3, because if you say, my goal is bring me 3, and they say, sorry, there's 15, they come to you and they say, there are 15 qualified candidates based on your criteria. Do you have additional criteria so we can whittle it down more? And I think that's when they come before us, and we can, but we shouldn't be reading through 80 resumes to see, okay, does this person have that 2 years? Okay, does that person have that 3 years? Does this one have that master's degree? Does this one have MCPPO training? Does this one have this? You know, let them do that initial round. And if they bring us 3, because that's our goal, great. If they say this 15, then we do another round. But that's what we're hiring them to do.
So it sounds like we're in agreement that we want to get an RFP together, and we could vote on that next week. And then we have a little time to finalize our decision about what we, specific instruction we might give the search committee. Or maybe we can find out from them what their process is.
So if I may, I believe there are RFPs out there, sample ones. I don't know if, no, and that's what I'm saying. So I don't know if the town manager can include those so we can all be on the same or a similar page, and we can certainly research on our own, but just something, again, if something recently came up and we want to explore that, but I think we all need at least a starting point.
And that stuff does not typically go in your RFP. Your RFP is typically, we want a firm that has this experience vetting this. And you pick the firm, and then you meet with that firm and you say, when you advertise, this is the stuff we're looking for in our candidate.
Right.
So that stuff that we're talking about doesn't even go in the RFP. The RFP says we are hiring a firm to do this, and we want you to have this kind of experience.
Correct.
That being said, I would like to see the RFPs, and before next week.
Is before
It can be
next
part of the
week.
board packet if it's going to be on the agenda.
So when you're talking next week, right, that would have to be done by Thursday of this week.
All right, but I mean, we could vote for, next week, we can vote for the process, which is to issue an RFP. And, you know, again, I want to make, you know, also vote on, you know, to enter into negotiations or whatever we have to do to appoint Dory as interim. And then from there, you have the vote of direction to the town manager that says, go craft an RFP and bring it back to us. And then at that 25th meeting that we're keeping on the agenda, gives you a little more time, you can then bring an RFP to us that says, you know, and that gives you 2 weeks, that says, you know, here's the typical RFP for this process. Again, no reinventing the wheel. And is there anything you want to tweak here or there within limits of Massachusetts purchasing requirements?
Okay, do board members have any other comments? Is that enough?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, great. So we are on number 10. We have no tabled items. Number 11 is member items, and this is to vote to set a public hearing. I do have a few questions regarding this. I'm happy to set a public hearing on people's issues with traffic, but what is our end goal? So I get our end goal ultimately is pedestrian safety and traffic safety issues. However, well, not even however, that being said, what do we hope to learn at this public hearing? And forgive me, because this might have been discussed already in the meeting I missed, but what do we hope to learn? Are we hoping to solve some of these traffic issues? I want to understand where we're going with this, because having people come to me and tell me that there's traffic issues is perfectly fine, and I'm happy to hear them, but also if we have several people that complain about intersections that are not on this Mass DOT crash data list, what are we going to do with that? Where are we going to get the money to fix these things? So,
So I think one thing is we don't know what we don't know. So if they bring it forward, we can certainly set and prioritize. We are limited on our budget, but we can also set direction on which ones take priority.
Sure.
And with the input of public safety as well. There's also a lot of quick wins or things that we were planning to do anyway. I also, I know there's a lot the DPW is doing, and it's in the road work or in the roadmap, in their plans, that doesn't get discussed enough, but maybe they had something that's 3 years down the road that can be moved up, 2 years to address a safety issue. And I'm not even saying, because sometimes a complaint is just a complaint, but if there's legit concerns, I do think we need to have a forum that they can bring it forward. And I'd like to see from that, and again, I don't know what the residents will bring forward, but us to discuss with, town officials as well about prioritizing some of those that we can, and then seeking in our capital improvement plans on some of the larger things that we can't necessarily address right away.
So I know my name is attached to this, but I'll defer to Mr. Carpenter, who was the one that called for the public hearing when I brought forth first Jerome at Hampton, that intersection, and then, 4 additional based on the top 5 Mass DOT crash rate. I will tell you my ultimate goal in bringing Jerome forward and then mentioning these others is not necessarily for every time somebody has an issue that they have to come to this board, and they're certainly welcome to, and I think it's a good forum, but it shouldn't rise to the level where someone has to come here and say, there's this intersection, I got into a crash, it's dangerous. I would like to get to the point where our professional staff is being more proactive and even reactive/proactive, where if residents reach out to them and say that there is a history of crashes at this intersection, and this is how Jerome came on the agenda, was that residents were reaching out over a period of time and brought all that to me and said, you are our neighbor, you are a select board member, you drive through this intersection every time, we have been emailing, can you elevate this? And I used my position to elevate that. I would like to, maybe it's after this public hearing, get to a point where our staff is being proactive and, the signs that got put up, Jerome, after the engineers were done looking at it and after the police were done looking at it, they agreed that it needed additional pavement markings, it needed one sign, shifted and another sign moved. Those changes were done before we had that report that night. I drove by them doing it that morning. So the ability is there without the select board to have to say, you go ahead and do this. I don't think we need to bless every intersection. I don't think we have to prioritize it. We had a public hearing that several of us attended with Mass DOT based on, problems on Mass DOT roadways within the town, with staff from the state senator's office. State senator was here, Representative Frost was here, Mass DOT representatives were here, DPW director was here, Sarah represented the board, Ed was here. And what Mass DOT did is they listened, they talked, they discussed, and they made notes for them to go back and investigate and see if there are sign changes that can be made or pavement markings or signal timing changes that can be made. They're not going to report back to all the different committees and everything to get their blessings. They're just going to go make those changes. If there's things that can just be done, I would like to get to the point where they're just getting done. And because traffic safety is an important issue to our residents, it is a quality of life issue. And again, I welcome anyone to come to public comment and to provide their feedback on things. But if there are issues identified by residents, our staff should just be able to go, be empowered to go address it without feeling the need that they need some master list telling them to go do it, blessed by the select board. But in terms of this actual public hearing, Mr. Carpenter, had proposed that, so I'll let him say exactly what he wants or wants to see.
After you just
Gave my
was
2
like,
cents.
I think it was more like $200, but no, my goal is to gather information, and I agree. I'm not looking to bless everything. I've never been one who thought that, you get elected and suddenly you have to make decisions on everything. But a lot of times, people don't know where to go. So this is a first step, just like the meeting last week was a first step for those people, to raise awareness. Staff doesn't travel these roads every day. Mass DOT doesn't travel their roads every day. They have a criteria. Their criteria is based on money and resources. That isn't necessarily what we're looking for. We're looking to see where there are problems. If there are quick fixes like Jerome Ave, that's great. If there are things that we can do to make improvements, Pinehurst Ave. There definitely needs to be some improvements on how people can cross that street. Now, Mass DOT will tell you, oh, you shouldn't do that because we've looked at 5,000 intersections, but the reality is we have 300 people on one side of the road and we have another 100 people on this side of the road, and they need to get to the other side of the road safely. So it's great that you have your criteria, and it's great that you have your thoughts and wishes. The reality is it's as simple as the people on Pinehurst Ave can't cross their street safely. What can we do to make that happen as a town? I'm not looking to solve everybody's problems. I've never been the one but I do like discussion, and I do want people to know that this board is a resource. And for a very, very, very long time, I think the citizens of Auburn have thought that we are not a resource, that we just get elected, we go here, we have meetings, and they're not part of the process. This is an opportunity to invite people in, let them, just like last week, every resident who stood up had a solution, or at least an idea on how to make it better. So let's, much like the search committee, let's use our collective wisdom to get to the best result. The five of us are very good. We all have different professional backgrounds and different ideas of what's best for Auburn. But the reality is there's more talent in our community, and we've got to find a way to activate them so that they understand they can be part of the problem. They can go to DPW and have that conversation. They can call the town manager, and he or she is going to listen to them and not just sit there and say, we don't have any money in the budget. Is a solutions-based person and is going to give that person an opportunity to say, hey, maybe if we did this. And then Joanna or whoever goes out there and says, yeah, maybe we can do this. And it makes it a little better for everybody. Because essentially, my thing is, I want the public to feel like they're part of the solution. We're not here to do everything for them. We need their help to make the town a success. Town staff needs their help to make this town a success. That's why we're here. That's why everybody lives here, to make the town better. That's why people work here, because they want to come to work and feel like, I helped one person. Hopefully you do more than that, but, I'm sure you do. But anyways, that's my goal for the whole thing. It's a first step, and let's see where it takes us.
Great, I appreciate the background. So that being said, when are people available for a public hearing?
I am not here for the 25th, and I will not be remoting in, so.
So I guess my question is that, does it have to be a full, are we looking to have it be a full meeting of the select board, or can it be similar to what we just did with Mass DOT, where some members of the select board are representatives from police, fire, DPW, town manager's office are here as well, or are we looking for it to be a full meeting of the select board?
I like your idea. Let's model it after what we did a week ago. I think that's better. They're here, they actually have the expertise. Let's see. I don't need to be here for it. I will be, but I won't be. Well, unless it's during that week, I won't be here. But
So,
So I guess at that point, I guess I would defer to the town manager to see when all the staff is available that we want here. Certainly I'm interested in, and I think I said this before, police, fire, as well as DPW, whether it's just Joanna or maybe one or two of one of the engineers that would be doing this, because I assume Joanna's not going out and looking at every single one of these herself. The chief of fire comes and he covers EMS, but, that's sort of an important aspect as well as ambulance.
okay, so could we have those individuals or people from the...
Sure, let me reach out tomorrow. I'd like to do it sooner than later, because as we get deeper into December, around the holidays, their schedules are going to be less flexible. So if it's something we can do at the end of the month, or maybe, I know the first week in December is budget kickoff, so that may create some issues, but let me see what we can pull together. Also, we want to advertise it for a period of time on our website and through social media. And I want to create some space so people have an opportunity to prepare and schedule time to come before. So let me get back to you on that.
One other, and I'll throw this out to my members, I don't know if we want Adam to be there. I know one of the issues on Jerome was the fact that it was a corner lot with a fence, and we had no zoning that prohibits the fence from being built, that was creating the sightline issues. So I don't know if it makes sense on that level as well, or if, or if not, but.
I'll leave it up to the manager, but I would like some of those standalone signs out promoting this, because the normal routes, people are not going to see it, enough people aren't going to see it. We need those standalone advertising it, so that they know it's happening. Because it just, as much as we try to do it, you want as many people as you can, obviously safely, there's a room limit, but, just aggressively promote it through that, please.
So I think we can at least run it on our digital signboards that are at the library and fire. Maybe we can do one on the other side of town on a message board that Highway has. But certainly we'll do our best to get the word out there, not only through our social media, but through the electronic sign.
Can we also ask the school department if they have one at the high school right on Auburn Street?
Yeah.
That is a pretty prime location that parents drive by all the time. And it's one of the, busier traffic streets in terms of town jurisdiction. If we can have them promoted as well.
I just don't, I'll make the request. I just
No,
don't know if they have
I know you have to make the
policy.
request through the
Yeah.
school department.
Yeah.
I just think that, it's something that's important to the schools as well.
Yeah.
Would be traffic safety around their schools.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, so we have, nobody signed up for our second public comment. We do have meeting minutes from October 15th in our packets. Are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, I will accept them as read. We will just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. We are adjourned.